Hello, this is Dr. Lee Hildebrand, speaker, psychologist, director of a mental health clinic and coaching clinic in Mequon, Wisconsin. Really looking forward to our topic today that I want to help with, and that is overcoming anxiety. And in particular, I want to talk about a term which is helpful in understanding this, and that's anticipatory anxiety. Exactly what is anticipatory anxiety? Anticipatory anxiety is a habit of looking ahead to try to emotionally anticipate either negative events or the loss of positive things in your life or things that you desire. It's almost a sense where you're kind of reaching the hand out of your emotions, trying to feel into the future to influence something in the future, or to anticipate something and have influence just by thinking about it and worrying about it. Now, when we do this, when we participate in anxiety or anticipatory anxiety, it leads to distress in the body. It leads to distress in the mind. And anticipatory anxiety can sometimes feel like we're waiting for the shoe to drop or the next difficult thing to happen in our lives. Have you ever felt that way, that you've had a few bad things happen, and maybe some very significant bad things happen, and you're anticipating that something else is going to happen that's not bad. And this leads to stress. Now, a great example of this, of course, in terms of stresses we've gone through in recent years is the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course the Delta. We've all experienced a tremendous amount of anxiety related to that, the anxiety of how we approach that and deal with that, and also the anxiety of the different opinions that there are in regard to that as well. So that's just one example, and a lot of people, even in regard to that, are kind of looking ahead and wondering what's going to be next. And if you think about even in less trying times than recently, anxiety disorders have been shown to be very common in terms of a mental health issue across the United States. In fact, certain research shows that up to 40 million adults in the United States, age 18 and older, that is 18.1% of the population, are affected by anxiety every year. Now, anxiety can be managed, yet watch this, there's only 36 or 37% of those suffering from anxiety that actually seek out any kind of assistance or treatment or help for the anxiety. Many people, unfortunately, continue to live year by year with these patterns of anxiety, producing stress at the physiological level of their bodies, as well as their mind and their spirit. So let's ask ourselves this: what contributes most to anticipatory anxiety? Anxiety in itself can trigger a fight or flight response in the body and release a flood of chemicals and hormones like adrenaline into your system. And this can be present with a very reactive, ready to go state in your body. And in the short term, this increases your pulse, your breathing rate, and it can increase oxygen to your brain. Now, in traumatic or important situations where you need to act in a hurry or you need to make a split-second decision, some amount of stress in the body can be helpful. You've heard stories and seen things in regard to adrenaline, where people that are extremely stressed have been able to perform feats of strength or take actions that they wouldn't be able to do in normal circumstances. The unfortunate thing about this is this overactivity of the sympathetic nervous system that occurs with anxiety can become frequent and habitual for some people who have experienced trauma. You see this with a military combat veteran, for instance, where they've been in situations where that adrenaline is going and they have to act fast. It's a life and death situation in combat, and their bodies become attuned to being in this hyperactive nervous state. And that, over time, research has been shown is it can become very detrimental to the body. So when we experience trauma, there can also be maladaptive beliefs which accompany our response and contribute to a prolonged future anxiety and negative thinking patterns that can go along with that. Now, this is not only in regard to combat trauma, this could be the trauma of having a very difficult and toxic or dysfunctional family. It can be trauma related to sexual or physical abuse. It can be financial or economic trauma that may have occurred. For example, in the housing crisis and crash in 2007, 2008. So even for those with specific trauma, there can be a habit of anticipating and looking for other negative things to happen. And people can become very fearful of these negative results. Now, it doesn't just have to be people that have experienced trauma that get into this pattern. There are people that haven't experienced major trauma that tend to lean toward a state of anxiety in regard to how they function in a day-to-day basis. So let's ask ourselves again, how does anticipatory anxiety disrupt your life? How does it disrupt my life? Well, what happens with this stress in the body related to the anxiety is it poses problems. It can pose problems in regard to the quality of your sleep. It can be something that disrupts your sleep in terms of waking up in the middle of the night or having difficulty getting to sleep or not feeling rested in the morning. It impacts daily functioning in terms of being able to accomplish things and get things done. And it also can get in the way of social relationships because when there's a lot of anxiety, it can be very difficult to engage socially as well. And another factor that can happen is it can affect our concentration and our ability to focus on things that we need to. Now, this could even lead to some physical concerns over time, like hypertension, for example, and other types of physical symptoms. Many of us, if you think about it, when we feel stress or we feel anxiety, there's an awareness about an actual spot in the body where this occurs. For me, I would say when I feel intense anxiety, it's right here in the chest area. Others report it's in the neck and the shoulders. I've had others report that it's in the head area. So if you think about where you experience it, it shows that there's such a connection between the mind and the body in this physiological reaction to anxiety and stress. What this does is it really contributes to depression and just a sense that things are not going our way and they're going in a negative direction. It interferes with what we're trying to do in the present. It distracts us from taking the next right action steps that we need to accomplish what needs to be done in the present. It can become an attitude of mind. Of course, you've probably heard of the old adage, the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. That is, if you take a glass of water or some liquid and you look at the perspective, some people may look at it and think, okay, there's a half a glass of water there. Or they can focus on what's not there and say, oh, that's a half glass empty. And this is applied, of course, to life in terms of our attitudes and what we see in our everyday lives. Some people in circumstances are going to look at the negative. They get in the habit of that. They're anxious about it. They're focusing on what's going to happen in the negative. Now, others have developed a pattern and a habit of looking for opportunities and not just watching for the obstacles. If we are focused in an anxiety state and looking for what could go wrong, we are going to find something. So let's ask ourselves, how do we work against this? How do we live in the present and move away from this state of anxiety and anticipation of negative things in the future? Well, first of all, one of the things that we can do is we can recognize that the concept of the future itself is a configuration in our minds. Let me give an analogy of this. If you imagine yourself standing in front of a door, and there is a doorway, and what is beyond that door is the future. Now, if you're standing in front of that door in your life, oftentimes you do not see what is in the future. You might have thoughts about what might be beyond that door, and you might be able to see the step right in front of you, that step in the moment. But the present is always where you're at. You're standing in front of the door of the future, and you never know what's on the other side. When you get to what you think is the future, you're still in the present. You're still in the present. It's just a little different circumstance. So we often have a sense of the next step that we might be taking, but if we're really honest about it, we really have no idea what's going to happen behind that door. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. This is an important acceptance and realization, because part of what drives the anticipatory anxiety is this belief that if we just worry about it enough, we'll be able to have some influence into the future. Now, if you think about it, the pandemic of 2020 is a prime example of this reality. I also referred to the real estate crash in 2007. This is why we have to acknowledge in both of those situations, there were very few people in the day-to-day life that knew that was coming. And, the poets and songwriters, including Van Morrison, refer to something called the eternal moment. And what is meant by this is that we continuously live in the present. The past is behind us, and the future is beyond the door that I referred to and is unknowable. And we are continuously residing in the present eternal moment within our lives. So the key to this is accepting this reality and intentionally focus on staying present in the moment that we're in. This is a powerful tool in being able to dismantle anticipatory anxiety. A phrase that I think about often in my day-to-day affairs, quite frankly, is execution without fear. And what that means, it's focused in the present moment on what I need to do right now, or what I need to focus on right now, and letting go of the fear, letting go of the outcomes. This practice of staying in the present helps us to let go of expectations about what we may lose or what we may not gain in the future, so that we can bring our optimal self in regard to focusing in the present. It keeps us focused on the most influential moment that we have, the here and now. An example of this comes to my mind. I enjoy running races, and I've been doing that for some time. And I will say that time period where I'm kind of after the first mile in a race of any kind, I start to get this focus, and it's just focus in the present. It's being present. It's not anticipating what's going to be around the bend in terms of where I'm running, and just being present and focusing on where I'm at and where I'm headed, focusing on my cadence, and just being really hyper in tune with where I'm at in the present. And this focus really helps me to be more effective than the opposite, which would be anticipation. Oh, is my mile going to be fast enough on this one? Am I going to get lost along the way? Is somebody going to pass me at some point? If I start to get into some kind of negative thinking, or, oh, this hurts, is it going to hurt more as I keep going? That kind of thinking is defeating. So when we're focusing on the here and now, the other thing we need to focus on is what action steps do we need to take now in the present. It makes sense to invest our energy in these action steps in the present instead of putting that energy into worry about what we do not have influence over. Let me say that again. It's crucial to put your energy and focus on what you have most influence over, and that is your action steps and your decisions in the present moment, versus investing that energy in worry and anxiety about the future, which we've already established. You don't know what's going to happen. The only influence you have on that is what you do in the here and now. So living in a manner that places our attention on the present moment is a crucial approach to managing anxiety. So in addition to this, what are some other practical tools that can help with anxiety? Well, let me talk about 3 or 4 or 5 right now. One thing I often do, beginning with your day, start your day off with motivational books, podcasts, or videos that can assist you in getting into the right frame of mind. These resources can help eliminate outdated or irrational thinking that we might have about life situations and equip us with positivity and equip us with support. You know, there are some people who believe that their misfortune, this is an example of this, is just bad luck and no fault of their own, and they give themselves little resources or little recourse to take corrective action when they're thinking that way. Oh, if it's just bad luck and it's the world out there that's doing that to me. Well, if you start your day with some positive reinforcement about the true influence you have in the eternal given moment, that can be a powerful springboard to do positive things with the moments that you have and to take responsibility for your action steps in that moment. What you can't take responsibility is for the unknown future and things outside of yourself that you don't have influence over. Number 2, focus on the narrative and situations. Oftentimes I make a game of this in my life. When I look at a given situation, even if there are some challenges to it, what is my narrative? What am I telling myself about the situation? When I'm in the grocery line and there's 6 people in front of me and the woman is at the checkout with a whole bag full of coupons and it's going to take a tremendous long time, what do I tell myself? Do I tell myself this is terrible? Oh, this is awful. I can't believe this. Or do I take it as an opportunity? Do I take it as an opportunity to have a conversation with the person in front of me? Do I take it as an opportunity to just reflect or prayer or to think positive thoughts about the people in front of me in the line? So what I try to do with narrative is flip the tables in what would be a typical negative narrative and find the positive angle. And you know how much better I feel when I take that approach than if I take the glass is half full approach. Third, find creative mental angles, just as I was referring to, about situations. Step back from situations and ask yourself, how can I see this situation in a way that's going to add the most value to myself and to others in the situation? Number 4, I want to encourage you to take action steps that can influence your situation in the moment. It is very important that we continue, regardless of what's going on in our lives, to continue to do things that are going to help it to be better. If we just sit on our hands, so to speak, and bemoan a situation that we're in, and we do not continue to take forward action, it will not get better. So this is crucial that we keep that in mind. Next, I want to talk about deep breathing and meditation. These are 2 powerful tools that can really help to turn down the volume on anxiety. There's a lot of different ways that you can do deep breathing, and I can't get into all of those here, but one simple thing you can do is to just, in the midst of what you're doing, is take some deep breaths and then just let the exhale be really slow. Just like let it go down all the way to the last bit of breath. And just take 2 or 3 or 4 of those deep breaths. That in itself can bring about a downturn in regard to the stress and the anxiety in the situation. And meditation can take many forms. It can be literally focusing on the positive. It can have a religious and spiritual aspect to it. It can be really a focus of the mind which eliminates the distractions externally. Next point is, if this is pertinent to you and fits, practice faith. Practice faith, maybe in a power greater than yourself in God, and prayer. Asking for help. Please help me in this situation. Help me to see things positively. Help me to find what I'm looking for in this situation, and help others to find what they're looking for in this situation. Many people find powerful relief in trusting God with the outcomes of their lives and not feeling like they all have to do it themselves. Lastly, I want to leave you with this. If you have great difficulties with anxiety and feel that some of these strategies help a little bit, but they're still not enough, look for a professional counselor, psychologist, coach that can help you with the process of working on the anxiety at a higher level. Obviously, we can certainly help with that if that's something that you need. Both locally in Mequon, we do things in person, virtually, whatever format that you need. Really, we consider ourselves mental health tailors. We want the jacket to fit the way you need it to fit with what you need. And in addition to that, we do life coaching with people all over the nation. So there's no geographic limitation in terms of getting the kind of support and help that you could need. So I just want to thank you for taking the time today. I hope this is helpful in regard to your desire to manage to overcome anxiety in your life. If you like this video, please select like on it. If you want to subscribe to my channel and hear more of the upcoming videos that I have and some of the ones I've already done, please feel free to do so. I hope you have a successful day, and I just want to remind you, stay in the present and do what you can do in the present. Wishing you well. Take care.